Welcome back to the Future Print Leaders Summit. Our next session, we've got another big hitter with us today, Mr. Doug Edwards, who is the CTO of EFI. Welcome, Doug.
Hey, Marcus. Nice to see you again. It's been a while.
It has. And where are you dialing in from, Doug? So I always like to ask where they are.
Yeah, I'm in New Hampshire today. So I'm based in New Hampshire. You know, R&D, obviously, we have facilities all over the place. Yeah. But this is where I'm located, which is not too far from my home in Vermont.
Superb. So today we're going to have a discussion really about your view of the future of print with technology and sort of your view of the kind of world we're in now and so on. Doug, you come to us with a fair few years experience in printing, commerce, technical sides, and also obviously inkjet. Tell us a bit about your backstory and how you got to be where you are now.
That was a very polite way, Marcus, of saying you're an old bugger that's been around for a while, right? That was
experienced. Yes.
Experienced. I prefer experience. I've been in the imaging and printing industry probably now for about 35 years. And I joined EFI beginning of last year. But as you well know, before that, I was the CEO of ZAR, so I was in the UK for 5 years. Before that, with Kodak, and I ran all of Kodak's digital businesses. Before that, I ran all their pre-press business, the CTP and digital plate business, and came into Kodak from a joint venture between Kodak and Sun Chemical, Kodak Polychrome Graphics. And I came into that from International Paper, and before that in the UK, I was with Zenica Specialties, who actually became AstraZeneca, and ICI Colors and Fine Chemicals. So many years of experience. I prefer experience in the imaging and printing. From running businesses to running, technology organizations.
Yeah, that's great. And you've seen the transformation occur and been part of that. So that's exciting.
Definitely. Saw the CTP transformation. I've seen quite a lot of digital transformations, for sure.
And with that in mind, sort of looking ahead to the future, the industrial segments that EFI have become quite active in, outside of just sort of traditional print, what do you see the future of those segments, the industrial segments?
I think it's really bright. I mean, you take a look at the video that we started this with, and, the breadth of applications is enormous. So I think, in terms of industrial print, the future is really, really bright, really exciting. They're big markets. I mean, the markets we play in, they're ranging anywhere from sort of 80 to 200 billion. So, briefly, display graphics, something like 80. And, when you look at corrugated packaging, about 180 billion. So they're very large markets. They're all at sort of different stages of their sort of digital journeys. So, you go up from one extreme, ceramics, which is probably more than 90% digitally converted. And then, the other extreme being sort of corrugated packaging, which is probably less than 1%. So, they're all being impacted, by the same sort of, mega trends, right? You talk about online shopping or social media or sort of environmental pressures. And, digital is, typically takes out processing steps, brings personalization, brings a lot of supply chain waste reduction, and a lot of faster turnaround. So, I think, the opportunity for EFI and our customers is fantastic. And again, I think we're really well placed at EFI, particularly from a workflow software standpoint, because I think that's critical. I mean, we can talk a bit more about it, but I think that's critical in sort of helping customers through the sort of digital transformation. You have to think about the whole ecosystem. I think, dropping, a digital printing device into, an analog or a traditional workflow, sometimes can create, as many issues as it solves. So you really do need to understand, what you need to do up front, and what happens downstream, beyond the printing process. And, I do think EFI is probably better placed than any in the industry to deal with that.
Excellent. And obviously, you've, as you said, the experience, you've seen the few transformations, and nobody, I don't think, alive has experienced anything like the last 12 months. And
No.
with that in mind, how's that kind of impacted your view of the future? Is it altered it at all, or?
I think in terms of the future, Marcus, it's, I think, if you look at the digital transformation across all these markets, it's only going to accelerate. Right. So when you look at the future, I mean, that's clear. In the short term, we've taken a few setbacks, right? I mean, the display segment, obviously has been impacted, with no large event gatherings, sporting events or trade shows but, we started to see that come back as well, actually, towards the back end of last year. But certainly during the year, it took a bit of a setback. But it's, there are other businesses that have actually grown through this pandemic, right? Our corrugated packaging business, for a start, our Nozomi business, with the sort of trend towards a lot of online shopping, it's driven that business. And, another area such as ceramics has been growing as well throughout the pandemic because, we've all been stuck at home, right? So, everybody's taken the opportunity to do some renovation and some decoration. So, we've seen that business growing quite nicely. I think the things we've all realized, everybody, right, is, there's so much more we can actually do remotely. We've been forced to do it, right? But I think, trying to sort of stay connected, with our employees, with our customers, with our manufacturing facilities, even our products, right? Our machines in the field. We talk about sort of Industry 4.0, we talk about the Internet of Things. I think what's happened with this pandemic is it's really accelerating that journey to the sort of fully connected business ecosystem, right? And, for us, it's really highlighted the importance of workflow software as a key enabler. So, honestly, I think from a future standpoint, things are just going to happen faster. We're going to do a lot more remotely. We have to stay connected. And for us, I mean, that presents an opportunity, quite frankly.
Yeah. It's an interesting point you make about acceleration. I think there's also, I think we need to remember as well, I don't know what you think, but obviously things have accelerated, but when we're out of lockdown, they're not going to go back to the previous pace, are they? They're going to sustain at that.
No,
pace. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I think what we've all discovered is, the efficiency gains, right? We're not spending our lives, I've spent my whole life sort of on aeroplanes flying around the world. There's not such a necessity to do that, right? I think we've realized, we can stay in touch with our customers wherever they happen to be in the world, and we can connect them. One of the things that, we're working on is a sort of overall, IoT strategy for the company, and thinking about, the likes of remote diagnostics and using, augmented reality to put people in touch. So, we've been doing it because we've had to do it, right? We've put customers in touch with, our top engineers, for example. If they have any issues they need to deal with, we give them a set of Google glasses and, we can interrogate the machine wherever it happens to be, in Asia even. And it's, the greatest engineers we have in the company who are sort of aiding customers directly. And we've armed our service engineers, with Google glasses as well, right?
Yeah.
So it's, that, and, in terms of locations, do we need to be in the office so much? Do we need all the office space we've got at the minute? Okay. I mean, there are some areas of the business clearly, they have to be, in the lab, for example, our ink development people, our hardware development people, but people like myself, maybe can work more in a sort of hybrid environment. And, there are a lot of efficiencies to be driven from that. So I think, we will realize, the industry will realize a lot of efficiency coming out the other side of this pandemic.
Yeah, interesting. And with that in mind, where do you see the sort of biggest growth opportunities? Are they, obviously EFI is pretty unique, aren't you? In a way, with the sense that not many people know that you're in inks, and
Right.
you're obviously software is at the core of the business as well as the hardware. So, where do you see the kind of biggest growth opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look across the businesses, overall, I would say, definitely in driving more analog volume digital, the workflow software capabilities we have are going to be absolutely fundamental. And like I say, I think we're better positioned than many to help with that transition. But if you take sort of business by business, like I said earlier, they're all at sort of very different phases of the transformation. So, at one extreme is ceramics, it's 90% converted. At the other extreme is packaging. So I think we'd have to say, if we look across all our businesses, the biggest growth opportunity is in packaging. I mean, it's the largest market. There's the lowest level of digital conversion. It's a highly fragmented market, right? It's going to be really important to put different people in that value chain in touch with one another. People that perhaps haven't been in touch with one another in the past. But definitely, we've taken a strong market leading position with Nozomi, in that packaging space. But that said, even ceramics, right? Ceramics, although it's 90% digitally converted, the market's now transitioning away from solvent and oil-based ink to water-based ink. We have a water-based ink solution, which nobody else does. So, there's a big growth opportunity even in ceramics from an annuity standpoint, from an ink standpoint. And we're driving that, and we're helping drive that with hardware because, we've introduced a hybrid printer into the ceramics market, our P5 product, which, enables the customer to use solvent, but also water. So it helps them with that transitional journey, right? So, we still see that as a good growth opportunity, even though the market's heavily converted. If I pick some of the other businesses, if I pick textiles, we know what's happening there, right? Again, nearshoring is accelerating. Direct to garment printing is accelerating. Got very long supply chains. I mean, you go back a few years, a lot of the textile industry moved pretty aggressively, to Southeast Asia and China. And those long supply chains, can be particularly problematic, and they have been during the pandemic. And it's sort of driving towards sort of digital adoption. I mean, the growth in online shopping, the need for sort of faster turnaround, particularly, we talk about fast fashion, is all playing towards, a move to digital, right?
Yeah.
And then, if we take display graphics, which is, I said probably 40-50% digitally converted, what we're seeing there is some consolidation. The bigger players getting bigger, some of the smaller players, going away or combining forces. And we're also seeing a lot of convergence with packaging. And what that's driving is the need for much higher speed and more productive printers. And so, we'll talk about it, I'm sure. We're introducing, a whole range of, high speed, highly productive, both shuttle-based and single pass printers into the market this year. And again, just coming back to workflow, the key enabler of all of this is the digital workflow capabilities, definitely. So look, I mean, many opportunities ahead of us. Yeah, I mean, look, our challenge a lot of the time is, figuring out, the priorities. But I think I'd have to say, priority number one for us is packaging.
Yeah, and then like you say, you have already established routes to market and products in textiles, corrugated. So you have a pretty good knowledge and touch points with those markets.
Right.
Anyway, and so I guess from a technology standpoint, you're pretty well positioned with the workflow software at the heart of it as well. So you've already said you're going to launch some single pass technologies and so on. What kind of broader commitments are you making at this stage? Because I guess we've all been impacted by, or many of us have been impacted by, a reduction in expenditure in some areas. So is it a time to invest now in R&D and so on, being the CTO?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've been investing, at the same sort of levels, for the last few years. So we typically invest around 15% of revenue in R&D. It's pretty significant. We have more than 1,000 people across the company. And we are a technology company, right? So, that is something that we're incredibly focused on, and we make sure we continue to support. So you mentioned already, just from a technology standpoint, we sort of see ourselves as a systems integrator, as a full solution provider, but we're integrating components into a printing system, from the software, hardware, and ink. So look, if you run down those areas, I mean, if I think about software, really talking about our Fiery business and our productivity software business. In Fiery, we're the market leader. We support many major OEMs printers, as well as our own. And in any digital transformation, one thing that's incredibly important is handling large amounts of data at very high speed. And so Fiery, if you look at Fiery and the technology there, it has processing power of about 10 gigabytes per second, which, to sort of put that into context, is about the equivalent of 7 Netflix videos every second. Right, so that's the sort of processing power we have, and you need that, right? You need that when you've got all this data coming at you in a digital workflow. It's very different when maybe one image you're printing many thousands of times, right? Every image can be different, so you're handling a huge amount of data. The other thing I would say about Fiery is I think it was pretty instrumental. We talked about the ceramics transition, right? I think in our industry, that was the fastest transition any of us have experienced.
Yeah.
It went from, zero digital to 90+%, probably in about 10 years. But much of that transition happened over a few years, 2 or 3 years, quite frankly. And I think some of the workflow software and the color management and sort of specialty graphics capabilities were every bit as important as the printer itself, because they really did enable, a lot of those customers to, create designs that they could never do previously, right? And it enabled them to get into markets they couldn't do either, right? They got into larger, thinner tiles. They were mimicking marble, they were mimicking wood. And it opened up all sorts of new markets for them. And I think that's really quite important in transformation.
Yeah, definitely. And with obviously the technical challenges is on the one side, and what other challenges are there when you're kind of looking at new markets and transformation and so on? Technical is obviously a key one, but what other challenges do you tend to find with different ones with different markets, or?
Yeah, no, I think overall this whole sort of ecosystem and understanding the whole ecosystem is important. And like I said, not just dropping a digital printer into a traditional workflow and expecting things to go swimmingly, right? They won't. But I do think also we need to get beyond just talking about the things we always talk about, right? In terms of shorter run lengths, faster turnaround times, personalization and waste reduction. I think, like in ceramics, we need to start thinking more about, okay, where are the incremental revenue opportunities? What business opportunities does digital provide that perhaps you didn't have open to you in an analog or traditional environment? Okay, so, like I said, being able to do designs you couldn't do before, being able to print on larger tiles, thinner tiles that you couldn't do before. So I think we need to take that thinking a little bit into the packaging and textile market and some of the other markets we play in, pointing out the new opportunities. So, if you look at branding, if you look at packaging, the branding and advertising opportunity, on the corrugated box, for example, right? The brands talk a lot about the sort of first moment of truth, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware of that, right?
Yeah.
And we're really looking to transition that from the sort of supermarket shelf to the doorstep. And we're starting to see that happening. And I think we need to talk about that. It's a really big opportunity for the packaging industry to make, the corrugated box, an important branding and advertising opportunity. And in textiles, like we talked about, direct to garment printing, I think we need to make this sort of microfactory concept a reality, right? We need to get beyond just the t-shirt printing, right? Which is where it is today, largely. And I think there's an opportunity to drive that. I mean, the other big one, the other big area when you're talking about, helping customers make this migration, we need to show a path to sort of similar levels of cost and productivity to analog. Right? Certainly from a, TCO standpoint. So if we want, significant volumes to move from analog to digital, as we saw in ceramics, it's going to be important that the technology is able to compete, with the analog technology from a cost and productivity standpoint. And again, that's why we're so focused on single pass. Because, it's not by chance that many of the analog technologies are actually single pass technologies. So if you want to compete with them from a cost and productivity standpoint, you've got to go in that direction.
Yeah, and that sort of leads on nicely to, what kind of technologies do you believe will be the most impactful in driving that? I assume from what you're saying, single pass is fairly critical from a strategic perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if you think what the company's done, it's taken single pass technology from ceramics into packaging. So we started in ceramics, we took it into packaging, we took it into textiles. We're taking it now into display.
Yeah.
We've taken it now into the wood market, and there's many to come.
Yeah, brilliant.
So yeah, very, very important for us.
Right.
And what? Sorry, Marcus.
No. I was just going to say, with when you're planning your investment in technology, how do you go about it? Is it something? Obviously, you have an internal team, but what role do your customers tend to play in it?
They're critical. They're essential. This is one of the things I think EFI does really well. I know when I joined, January last year, within a few weeks, I got to go to Connect, which is our sort of annual user conference. And
I've heard about it. I've never been.
We'll have to invite you.
Yeah,
we'll have to invite you.
Yeah.
But we had, we had a few hundred of our customers there.
Yeah, it's quite a deal, isn't it?
Oh, it's a big event, and the feedback's sort of priceless, right? For us in fine tuning our strategy and future sort of new product development plans. And this year we've done something similar to you're doing here, right? We had a virtual Engage conference.
Yep.
So look, they are very instrumental in helping set direction for us. And, any new business area we go into, we do a pretty thorough voice of customer assessment.
Mm-hmm. Very good, very good. And obviously the markets we've talked about now are packaging is at a low level in terms of adoption at this time, but expected to rapidly increase. As you've said, all of the conditions and all of the stars probably need to align a little in certain markets, but it looks like that's going to happen. Are there any other markets you see in the future that are kind of going to perhaps come online?
I mean, there are many, right? But coming back to, the previous question, our customers sort of define a lot of new market opportunities for us. And, often, they are a pretty creative bunch. They often take, our existing technologies into new markets. They've done that, in our displays business with a lot of our shuttle devices. They've taken those platforms, those hardware platforms, into areas such as, luxury vinyl tile decoration, shower and bath enclosures, high fashion leather accessory decoration. They then become material development opportunities for us, because our hardware platforms, are already there, already exist. So it starts to drive for us new material investigation and new material development. The other thing that we do ourselves is we try, not to get too carried away and spread our wings too far afield. We look closely at adjacencies. One of the things that we do in R&D is we build on common platforms. So common software platforms, common hardware platforms, be that shuttle or single pass, and common ink platforms, which enables us to sort of pivot, if you like, to use that word, into a number of new applications pretty seamlessly. And we like it because it also enables our customers to do the same. Right? They can quite easily move into a new application space, built on a core platform. So look, when I talk about adjacencies, I mean, we're in the corrugated packaging market today, and leading that market. But it's not too far afield to move into sort of folding carton. Some of that's already happening, to be honest. Metal can decoration, flexible packaging. In textiles, we're really in the fabric printing arena. So again, it's not much of a leap for us to move into garment printing.
Yeah.
And then, in building materials, we just launched our cubic printer for wood flooring and, furniture panel decoration. So, yeah, look, once you build those common platforms, it's really quite, how to say easy, not easy, but seamless to be able to sort of move into other areas.
Yeah. And different formulas, but ultimately the model being similar. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, I mean, along those lines, just to give you a feel, I think, we were working it out actually this week. We'll introduce probably about 17 new products this year. That's not including, new features to our DFE. That's not including sort of customized ink developments. It's sort of major new platforms.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about 17 new products. And the reason we're able to do that is because we have these common platforms.
Yeah.
Right. So we're sort of springboarding off of these common platforms all the time.
And it demonstrates the versatility of inkjet, doesn't it? I mean, you can work in so many. Yeah. It's quite incredible, really.
Yeah, it's pretty agnostic. In terms of versatility, if you think about it, I take an example of ink, right? We have a strong position in digital UV inks. And the reason we like UV inks is because they're pretty agnostic to the substrate you're printing on. And, the key there is, trying to get that sort of feature set, but in an aqueous ink.
Yeah.
Right. The minute you go aqueous, which, for environmental reasons, for cost reasons, many markets want to move in that direction. Right. We know that. I mentioned the ceramics example already. But, anything that sort of has direct food contact or even indirect food contact, people much prefer water-based systems. So what we are going to introduce actually next year is a water-based ink that has the feature set of a UV ink, which, it sounds like a holy grail. Actually, to be honest, I think it is. It's something EFI has been working on for many, many years, and it's come to fruition. Wow. So we think it's going to be a very transformational technology.
Yeah, yeah. The ink is so critical, isn't it? Getting that right, and like you say, the years of investment it takes, it comes to fruition. It can be a game changer.
Yeah.
Just one final question. I kind of like interested in what your opinion. We had a chat earlier about inkjet heads, the kind of head to head, and we compared thin film with bulk piezo, and I guess kind of saying, is the future thin film? Is the future bulk piezo? So now, obviously, you know a bit about this kind of topic, and being a CTO at EFI, and obviously you probably work with a number of different heads. I wonder what your view on that might be.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, look, we use both bulk and thin film print heads. I think it's not an either or discussion. They're both going to be important, and depending on what you're printing and what you're printing on, you're going to choose one or other of the technologies, right? So to give a couple of examples. If you're looking to jet, highly viscous, you might want to, a highly viscous polymer, for example, and you might want to print at elevated temperature. Take a 3D printing example. You're going to pick bulk piezo every time.
Yeah.
If you're printing on a much lower viscosity, let's say water-based ink, at very high speed, say a single pass platform, at high resolution, you're probably going to pick thin film. Right? They're both, and we do have both. In our textile printers, we have UV. We have thin film because we're printing water-based inks. Right? We have reactive dye inks for cellulosics. We have disperse for synthetic fibers. We have acid for nylon type materials. So, depending on what you're jetting, if it's a water-based ink, largely, single and at high speed, thin film would be the direction. But I think the answer, in short, is both are important.
Yeah.
The other angle on that is thermal versus piezo, right? And I think in our market, particularly the industrial market, it's pretty clear that piezo is dominant, right? We need robustness. The applications, the environments that these print heads are having to operate in are industrial environments, and they need to be robust.
Yeah.
So piezo is the way to go. Thermal. There are examples of thermal technologies being used in industrial applications, but it's a very different business model, right? In that case, it's a consumable. The print head is a consumable.
Okay, interesting. Thanks for that. And also thanks for your time, and very interesting listening to your view of the future, the challenges. What seems to run through all of it is optimism and confidence that actually not only EFI, but the inkjet community and the technology base is actually moving forward perhaps quicker than prior to COVID. And while there have been challenges, it's not ultimately going to impact the industry in a negative way going forward. So I really delighted to hear that. It's been great to chat with you again, Doug. Thanks for EFI being part of this event, and we look forward to having you on board for hopefully our next one. So thanks again.